it's going to be what it is for right now. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to February Gathering New Vision. So, the main focus today is going to be talking about the day and time of when we meet based on conversations we've had and feedback we've gotten. We're going to put to a vote if we want to keep the day as it is, day and time as it is, or change the day and or time. And then there'll be space to bring up anything else that anybody else has to talk about. And then one of the things that I've been working on is getting project homes. And so they weren't able to make this week work, which actually is probably better because don't know how the conversation will go or how long it will need to be. But we're hoping for next month to have project homes share, not just about what they do, but also about the project that they have on 19th Street that's going to be affordable housing. So that'll be a really good conversation. And by the end of this meeting, we'll know at least what day and time that'll be, and then we'll know where shortly after that. So a little bit of backdrop. New Visions has been going since the mid-90s and historically has been a Saturday morning gathering. Back in the day, we would have a couple dozen, if not more, folks that would come through. But over the last, I would say, decade, that's been diminishing all the way to the point where the last time we met in person was February 2020. That was the meeting that I was voted in as president. And then we immediately went into pandemic mode. And so, or maybe it was March 2020. Maybe it was right there. It was right at the start. Doesn't matter. You get the point. At that time, our attendance at the Saturday morning meetings was down to usually like half a dozen or so. And that had been going for a bit like that. And so it's been on my mind to think about, is this the best day or time as long as I've been present the last few years? And so one of the things that I did was, in addition to just gathering conversational information, I also did a survey that's been live since May 2021 at least, just to gauge. There were 3 questions to it. Do you regularly attend New Vision Civic League meetings? Why or why not? The majority of people who responded did not. Of the 20 responses, there were 3 that regularly attended. There are plenty of people that wanted to be able to attend, but for various reasons couldn't or didn't. Question 2 was, what would make you more likely to attend? And there's a myriad of reasons, from in-person meetings to providing food. But a lot of folks mentioned the day and time being one of the barriers. And then the third question is, what day or times would you like to, would make you more likely to regularly attend, and at what frequency? And again, we got a mix of responses at that point too, from some folks that like Saturday mornings. There were 3 or 4 responses where Saturday was best. But again, the majority said that for them to be able to attend, a weeknight evening would be best. And so, so we've been having conversations for a bit about this. Is historically, yeah, it's New Vision has been a Saturday morning thing. There are a lot of perks to it. Personally, it's easier on my family for Saturday mornings in a lot of ways, just because evenings get filled up. But there are a lot of folks that Saturdays just can't work. That's the whole week they're going, and Saturday is the day to finally get things done, or that's when travel happens, and there's a lot of barriers to Saturday happening. And just even the very real truth, and some people mention this, that some people don't want to wake up at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. I've got young kids, so I'm up at 6 anyways, but I get it, because there was a time when I didn't have kids. And so what we're going to do today is actually put to a vote when we would like to meet. Now, to make it easy, I went through the information and tried to find, instead of us just having, all right, what days, throw them out there, that's just not going to be productive. I went through to see what were the best days that came up, and I wanted to narrow it down to 2 times that we could vote on. So the first is to keep it where we have it, Saturday, 9 a.m. I will note that could work, but we will have to do some more searching for a location, because as of right now, there are a lot of locations that can't accommodate us at that time. But imagine the market possibly could. What do you think, Sheena? I'm kind of talking, but not thinking all the way through. Do you think the market at 9 a.m. on Saturday is a possibility?
I didn't ask, but we can see because they are open. They're
Yeah.
open at the time. So let's see if they have, sometimes they have the workout thing there on Saturday morning too.
Mhm.
So I would have to call
Okay.
Mohammed and see if he
All
if
right.
he has
But that's helpful to know. At first, I was thinking of all the places that I'd reached out to that couldn't do it, but now I'm realizing we don't need to get into the weeds of location, because it's possible that that could work. So either way, we'll be able to find a place. Oh, go ahead, Sheena.
But I did speak with Ms. Mary Thomas. We were both at the mayor's State of the City address.
Mm-hmm.
And she did explain that a lot of our seniors, they don't want to be out late at night. So I would say that if we can move, if we do keep the Saturday morning, it's still going to be like this small group that we have that is consistent, because a lot of the others, they have children's activities like basketball, football, or dance class and things like that. Those who other children that are in that school age.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm open to just making sure we meet in person.
Yeah. So the plan is, if we either way, what we're looking at for location is the market at 25th, just based on a lot of reasons. There are a lot of good options that might not be where we finally land, depending on the day and time, but that is currently what we're leaning towards. And yeah, and to your point, Sheena, I think one of the challenging things that we just have to name, like you just did, is there is no perfect time. I've already shared, for me personally, Saturday mornings are better, but that's maybe right now. And what I'm committed to, and what I've shared, I've always been committed to as president, is my role is to facilitate this space and to get the gauge of the will of the people and to go for that, rather than to push anything that works better for me. But the reality is that there's no perfect time. Some people have weekend things, some people have evening things. And so what we want to do is find what works best for the most people. And, worst case scenario, we give it a go. If we find out this was a bad idea, then we can do what we got to do. Right.
Yeah.
But what we do know is something about what we have been doing hasn't been working. Even pre-pandemic wasn't working. And so it's based on feedback. It is worth considering adjusting the time. So I do want to note, I've been saying vote. We are in an interesting place right now where at the start of the pandemic, I paused collection of dues, and normally dues would be what would qualify somebody to have a voting power, right? So that we're not worrying about any of that. So if you're here, then you get a say. The other piece is there are a lot of people that would want to be here that should be able to have a voice that aren't here. And that's something that I'm thinking about too, depending on how this goes. If it's unanimous, then that's one thing. If there's still a lot of concern, I've been playing around with the idea of, is there a window for feedback, a 2-day window for feedback? So if you miss the meeting, you want to give feedback. But I need to think through if I don't want that to make things messier. So right now we're going to just move forward as though we're making a vote to make the official decision. But I wanted to put that out there just so y'all know, I'm thinking through some of these other scenarios. So if we get to a point where that needs to happen, we'll talk through that. What I want to do before we vote is I want to share, based on this feedback, what I think the two best options are. And then I want to leave space for any conversation that people want to have. We've already had a lot of conversations, so I don't want to overdo this, but I do feel like it's important to give space if anybody wants to share any thoughts before we officially vote. So The 2 times on the table are Saturday, 9 a.m. Some people proposed a little later, but the reality is what Sheena was talking about. The later you go into the morning, the less likely you're going to get people. And so I would like us to stick with that, Saturday, 9 a.m. The other option, Monday was the top day that came up in all of these. Realistically, that's of the options that were on the table, that's probably the only day that me as president could do it. It's probably important for me to be able to attend. But based on this, a lot of people said Monday, and any of the other days that came in second were a far second. So I want to put Monday out there, and I feel like, see, it's hard. I haven't landed on a specific time, and maybe we don't have to completely land on that yet. But I would say either 6 or 7. 5, people are getting off work, it's too early. You get into 8, and then you're running into some other challenges. But the problem with 6 or 7 is you got the dinner situation.
So I would suggest 6:30.
6:30.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
got some other organizations, and we meet like Wednesday, 6:30, and it seems to work out well. People get home from work in time. It gives you a minute to drop your stuff, get yourself together. By the time you finish up with the meeting, you still have dinner on the table by 8.
And we'll be at the market. So if you need to grab a
There you go.
the market to bring it. Yeah, that's good. 6:30. I like 6:30. And again, we can adjust these things, but I'm trying to figure out a way to make this as easy as possible so that we're not getting too caught up in the weeds. So the 2 times we're looking at again are Saturday, 9 a.m. Or Monday at 6:30 p.m. So I want to open up the floor for any input, conversation, thoughts that you want to share.
Well,
This is
personally,
Ms.
I would
Roots,
like
and
to
I cannot do Mondays. First Mondays I have one meeting at 11 a.m., one at 5:30 p.m., and one at 6:30 p.m. So Monday is out for me.
This is Frida. Monday, on occasion, I have a quarterly board meeting. So I don't know what Mondays would be. Depending upon when they schedule, sometimes it gets changed. I'm not a fan of coming out at night, but I work with whatever the group decides.
And actually, I'm glad you said that, because one thing I do want to add is with both these options, it will be moving forward, it will be hybrid. So it will be, there will be an in-person element, and there will be this Zoom screen going and still recording it. So I'm glad you said that, because I completely forgot to mention it. But I do think that's important, because especially when we've got our house, we host a house church at our house, and there's a couple that has been coming, but then once we got into the winter and the nights came earlier and earlier and earlier, they just don't do night driving, and so they haven't been able to attend. And so that's something I was thinking about too, is the reality when you were talking about with seniors not wanting to come out at night. That made me think of that, and how during the summer 6:30 might not be a problem for a lot of people, but we have to be aware that coming into the winter, there could be some people that are like, I'm not going out, not even for night driving. Some people just aren't comfortable going out at night. So having the Zoom option makes that accessible if we land there. Sorry, you were saying something else?
I just want to explain, it's not so much about coming out at night, it's about having a parking space when I come back home.
Yeah, no, I hear that. We need to get you a custom sign in front of your house there.
Yeah, but I'm not handicapped, so I don't qualify for a handicap reserved space. And that really doesn't help, because anybody with a handicap plate can park there, from what I understand.
Yeah. What are some other thoughts? All right. Going once.
In person. So go ahead.
Was that you, Miss Roots?
No.
Oh, Miss
Oh,
Jane?
sorry, this is Jeannie. Yeah. If it's
Jeannie.
in person at the market, I could make it even if it was 9 a.m. on a Saturday. It's just close enough for me that that wouldn't be a problem. So,
Okay.
thank you.
And Chris, you were saying something?
Either works for me.
All right. Any other final thoughts?
I say give it a go. Let's see how it works, and then we can revisit it after maybe 2 meetings.
Mm-hmm. All right. So voting is tricky on this platform because when you're in person, you just look at people's hands, but we can't see everybody's hands. So
We can put our hands up in chat.
Well,
Well,
there's 2 people on the phone. They
yeah.
called.
yeah.
Oh, I
that's the
got you. I
tricky part.
got you.
Um,
Duh.
so so we can do it. We could go with audible, which is what audibles are, yay or nay. And then if we can't gauge majority from that, then we'll go from there. Does that sound like a legitimate plan for doing a vote on Zoom when you have these parameters? So I'll frame it as all in favor for trying a meeting Mondays at 6:30. So that will be the vote. Yay is you do want to try that. Nay is you do not think we should do that. And so we'll do that. We'll put that. We'll try to gauge audibly, and then we'll go from there. So, and I'm not going to do any of the motion kind of things because again, we're operating in a new state, so nobody has to first and second.
I do have one question. Is it an option to change it from, since Ms. Roots had a conflict, to change it from the first Monday to the second Monday?
So that I was thinking about, I mean, that is an option. Yes. We do have flexibility to think through if a lot of, I mean, particularly it was like a number of people had that conflict and one day was better. We had that freedom to do it. And so I would say we can come to that after this. Sheena, you look like you had something.
Yes, we just have to make sure that it's also up to the availability of the venue. It's the space. If Monday, the first Monday, only Monday that they have, then that's the one we're going to take.
Yeah.
So just there's another factor at play, but at least we know that we're good to do Mondays at 6:30.
And do you know if the first Monday is available, or is that our next step is to see which Mondays?
That's the next step.
Okay. So to that end, yeah, that's the flip side to it is we may have to change the time or with the week. There we go. So yeah, we're taking this in steps. So the first step is, do we change the day and time? So all in favor of trying out Mondays at 6:30, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
And all opposed, say nay.
Nay, not if it's the first Monday.
Okay.
Not if it's the first Monday. So the other 3 are fine.
I'm in
Well,
favor.
there's
Second
8 of
Monday.
us on the call, and that's only 4 votes. So do some abstain?
I could do either one. I'm indifferent. I could do.
Okay. So it sounds like the majority are for trying out Monday, 6:30. Will determine which week. We had 1 nay based on the first Monday and some abstains. So does that sound correct, Sheena, by your calculations?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 votes in out of the 8 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to actually verbally hear whether they abstain, yay or nay.
And I didn't vote. I think I'm in the same boat of either way, so I'm abstaining because I want to go with the will of the people rather than.
That's 6 votes. We need 2 more people did not vote.
I voted as a yay.
Okay, I voted as a yay.
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 Sunny and Chris. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And
Am I the last one left?
Ms. Roots voted as a nay.
Nay. She
And then
voted as nay.
Ms. Chamberlain, did you have a preference?
It doesn't matter with me.
Okay.
So that's an abstain. Okay,
Is that everybody?
that is everybody.
All right. So final totals.
The final totals, the yays have it at 4, nay 1, and abstains 3.
Okay. All right. So next steps are going to be Sheena's going to be talking to the market to find out day availabilities. I feel like in this group, I already heard a few people verbally say the second Monday is fine. Are there any other Mondays that people are like, absolutely no, I can't do that? Awesome. And I will say, so we're a small enough group that we can work to try to accommodate these different things. So that's why we ask. And also, you know, if we had a lot of people, like that's one of the things with the forums, there were a lot of people that wanted it a certain way. We can't do it a certain way for everyone, but definitely, Miss Roots, you've been around for a while, so you'd be in that boat of, you know, we want to definitely look into that. And so next step, Sheena's going to look into what other days are available, and then we'll basically within the officers, I think we'll make that, if y'all are okay with it, we'll make that decision rather than having another vote to determine which day, since people sound like they would be okay with whatever. That will save us some time. That will save us from having to delay. And so hopefully we can get that determined maybe in time for our March meeting, but definitely in time for our April meeting.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have it in time for the March meeting.
Yeah. So that'll be the plan. We'll do our big return to in person. And so I will say this, the officers and I had a meeting this week. Was it this week? Time is a blur. It was this week.
Friday. Yeah, I think was it Friday? No, Tuesday.
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It feels like forever ago. I do want to say this. As New Visions is incredibly important to the neighborhood. New Visions has a long history and a legacy in the neighborhood. New Visions has also been struggling for many years, not just because of the pandemic. I would say the pandemic didn't cause the struggle, but it didn't help. And one thing that we really need if we want to see New Vision continue and to thrive is we need consistent community engagement. We need people showing up. And if people aren't showing up, then that's the good news about this being on Zoom and it being recorded is we need to know that you're with us and you're engaged, right? So if you can never, let's say it's you can never make the meeting in person for some kind of reason, and you can't watch it live, maybe you work nights, right? If you end up watching the video though, and you respond back later, just shoot an email and say, hey, I saw this email, or you give some feedback to something. Hey, you were asking this question. Here's my feedback. If we know that you're engaged, that's helpful to us, but we do need physical presence as well. And so going back to in-person is going to provide that. So what I'm saying is, now that we made this vote, we've made a change in faith that people will respond to that change. We made a change in faith that the people who responded on the survey who said it's a weeknight, that they will make an effort to come. Schedules might have changed. We understand that, but we did this expecting others to follow suit and taking some steps, because that's what we need. We need that to happen in order to be able to keep on going and to thrive. So officers, any comments you want to make around this topic before we transition out, or anything really?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what you said, Paul. It's actually not very convenient for me. I know I don't live in the area. I do have a house in the NVCL footprint, but it's going to be after midnight for me to attend these meetings. But I voted in favor of weekday because I want there to be more participation in the civic association. So I'm going to try and make it work and attend virtually after midnight, and hopefully people hearing this, that motivates you to walk a couple of blocks down to the market and attend in person.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shout out to Sonny and his commitment.
It's
Not,
funny.
not everybody would be willing to do that after midnight kind of thing. And you were one that I was thinking about when this time came up, is I'm like, man, it's an inconvenient time for a lot of people. It's an awful time for Sonny. And even though it's because you live way, way, way over, you've also been deeply, 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 deeply involved in New Visions. And so I just want to honor you and being willing to make that sacrifice, knowing that the level of investment that you put in. And I do hope that people will see your example and say, okay, well, if Sonny can do that, I can surely do this. But we do need people to show up. We want to see some transition and transformation in New Visions in 2023. That it needs people to happen. All right, I'm going to open up the floor now to just general conversation, comments, concerns. So this is the time. If there's something you're like, I need to bring this up to the New Visions body, this is the time for that while I pour my coffee.
I had someone, I guess you guys remember when I shared out the information when we had the Maggie Walker Land and Trust information. I had a few people that reached back to me and they wanted to know exactly what the New Visions footprint was. And I explained it to them. They said, well, I think the footprint should be larger.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, well, because they said, if we don't expand it at least to cover the space behind 30, like towards, I want to say, Franklin Military Academy, towards that area. So that's like 37th, 38th in that area. There are a lot of people who are willing, but they feel like they just don't know if they can be a part of what's happening because of the footprint that has been set in stone. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, I'll bring it to the body and see what would have to happen if it is possible or not. But here are the meeting times. If you're able to come, if you actually come, then maybe we'll know how many people are interested in that footprint. And so far, I'm literally the only person. But
I'm up on North 37th. I'm literally across the street from the military.
Okay. So I'm on 30th.
Okay.
30th and R. So I mean, I'm still pretty close to the footprint because 25th is right there. But there are people that want to, from our side of 25th Street, that want to get involved.
Yeah.
Can I just throw something out there?
Yeah.
So another organization that I'm with is the Churchill Central Civic Association. And part of their thing, I think I talked about this last time, is the area is too big, right? So even within this organization or association, they're looking to try to sort of break things up into manageable bits.
Yes.
I mean, my suggestion, as you're saying there, would be to maybe try to connect with them and maybe create some synergy, the two organizations.
Yeah. So I can speak to this. Ironically, Sonny and I were having this conversation earlier this morning because we've actually got a neighbor who's north of Fairmount who really, really wants to engage civically. He even started a Facebook group for the Fairmount area. Now, here's the problem. I'm going to share my screen, which I want to apologize to the screenless folks in the room. There's nothing that can be done, but I will do my best to describe what everyone else is looking at. So what I am sharing is, all right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
And I'm sure it's small, so I'll see if I can get it to zoom in on just, all right, that's a little better. So what everyone's looking at is a page from rva.gov. It's rva.gov/planning-development-review/civic-groups. It's a lot easier if you just do what I did, go into Google and put Civic Groups Richmond, and it's one of the first hits. It is a map that shows the existing civic associations, neighborhood groups. There's also a list of neighborhood groups. And hypothetically, it's a really, well, it's a long list. I can't even scroll up. I had to unplug my mouse to get my microphone in. And so now I'm doing the double finger scroll. And so hypothetically, it's a valuable resource. It looks like a really detailed map. It's got everything divided out. So, right now I'm clicking on New Vision Civic League and it shows our footprint. Clicking on, oh man, Chris, you're not joking. Central Hill Civic Association has a massive footprint, which also bleeds into Churchill Association of RVA.
Yep.
You've got Union Hill. So here's the problem. This is not, I don't know if there is a specific person that's supposed to keep this up, but historically it has not been updated. Our information was only updated because I came on here and saw that it had the old information and I changed it. But even in that, there's wrong information. Where did it go? New Vision. All right, there we go. So I was able to get this, but I don't know whose number this is. And I don't know who has access to this PO box, right? So little things like that. I know there are a lot of, there's a lot of information on here that's not accurate, but we have a neighbor who is in the Unity Civic League footprint and has had a really hard time connecting with Unity Civic League, or anybody in that. He doesn't know if it's still functioning. And so he would love for us to expand our footprint. Here's what I told him, and I will tell you all. I'm going to stop sharing now so that I can look at the screen. Okay. We have the smallest footprint of all the civic associations in our immediate area, in the Churchill, greater Churchill area. We have the smaller one. Now, to Chris's point, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the smaller you are, the more focused and who you can be. But what I told him is, where we are right now is not in a place where we can make that type of a formal change. To formally increase the boundary, there's a lot that's going to go along with that. A lot of conversations that need to be had, a lot that would need to be figured out. And we're just now changing our day to try to figure out how to get more people to come, right? Or to get people to come back. So I told him, on a formal level, I don't think that we can accommodate that shift yet. Informally, absolutely, today, anybody in that spot is welcome, right? Like Chris and Sheena demonstrated, you don't have to be in the Sunny. You don't have to be in the geographic footprint to participate, particularly because there may be some hyper local things that we will talk about. That street sign on 20th and R, which will, Sheena and Chris will be like, that does not appeal to me. But realistically, most of the stuff that we talk about, even if it's hyper local, may have a broader impact. So if we're talking about this street sign, it might be a relevant issue elsewhere that impacts other things. And some of the stuff we're talking about isn't hyper local. It is when when New Visions pushed forward really hard on, we need a grocery store in the community, we knew it would impact our geographic footprint, but we knew that was for the whole, mile radius, right? And if you didn't know, New Visions played a big role in the market at 25th. So it's kind of cool that we're looking at being there. And so that would be my response is, there is a scenario in which one day we say, you know what, let's expand our boundaries. And I would say that would be the case if that new area doesn't have an active civic association, or that civic association is drowning or on the way out or just needs help. And we have the community buy-in and support to make that move worth doing. And so it goes back to what we were saying at the end of the vote is we need people. All that being said, Chris, to your point, that is there is actually a group of us presidents that did start connecting during the pandemic. we were consistent for a while. It kind of fell away, and so we need to get back into a rhythm. But we were trying to find a way to do what you mentioned. How can we cross connect? How can we interact? And so it was happening in two ways. One, a group of us presidents were trying to connect on a regular basis, and a group of us presidents were having a meeting with Councilwoman Newble and being able to touch point there. And yeah, there's definitely some value, particularly for those cross-section things, those things that are relevant to all the neighborhoods. I will say one of the challenges with it is among our group, we are in very different places. So, you know, I represented a space where I took over and then the pandemic hit, and we've been in a, New Visions has been in a unique space in that time period. And then there's, you know, someone who's with a very well-established not New Visions, civic association that has a large body of members that come regularly. They have a board, they have committees, right? Like that could create an interesting dynamic when you have those two very different entities in a space. But, you know, we worked with it and we figured out what interaction could look like and so forth. So yeah, I would say broadly, where we are right now is a formal increase. Maybe we revisit it when we get some stability. But informally, New Visions is for this geographic footprint and all of the area. Any other comments or thoughts or feedback on that? Awesome. So that was good. Now, I will add this, Sheena, to your point, I think what it reveals is there's an opportunity. How do we make those connections with people who want to get engaged but don't feel like they have a geographic home with the Civic Association? How do we make it feel relevant and valuable? So it's not just, oh, well, I'll go to this other group and this doesn't pertain to me at all, right? So I think those are some important conversations that we need to have. And it could also mean if that space isn't available, like if that doesn't work, how can we think outside the box to make sure those neighbors are getting what they need? Do we need to come alongside a struggling civic association, or do we need to create some other, you know, quarterly thing, right?
Honestly, that's sort of my point here, because I mean, let's face it, all through the East End, we all have a lot of the same needs, regardless of what the geographical boundaries are, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, food drives or, you know, school supplies, you know, drives, cleanups. I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't start tapping into some of these other organizations and say, hey, how about, you know, this weekend we do, you know, a little something in our neighborhood, and next weekend we'll head to yours, you know, that sort of thing. Actually get something moving. I hate to say this, but a lot of these different meetings I sit in on, it's just a lot of people sitting around talking, but I don't see anything ever happening. The Churchill Central Civic Association is really guilty of this. They're supposed to have like an outreach community arm as well as the land use committee. But the land use committee is, you know, pretty viable and doing well because there's so much change going on. But for whatever reason, the community side just sort of fell to the wayside and absolutely nothing has happened. You know, we've got all these little festivals, the Summerfest, Fall Fest, this, that, and the other. They didn't even want to set up a table. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of just little things that could be done that really don't cost anything. All it's going to take is time capital. And I'm not seeing real commitment from anybody.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Maybe we could get people talking to each other again, and they can get their own little groups together, and then let's mesh it. You know, we all have the same issues.
Yeah. And so one thing I'm going to do is this is a good reminder of that space with the other presidents. So I'm going to reach out to them and see, all right, do we want to get the band back together, talk to Councilwoman Newble and see if she wants to, because that space was good so that we, the presidents together could say, hey, this is an issue in our community. We've got three civic groups are saying to you now, like, we need this. Because yeah, ultimately what you're talking about, seeing things change and happen. One, there is power in numbers, right? And the other piece too is if we've got people that want to get engaged, we want to find a way for them to be able to do so. And the more people that are engaging, the more that we can create these simple steps, like you noted, like, you know, there's more people who can sit at a table. There's more people that could do a trash pickup. There's more people that can, you know, speak to different needs. So this is good. Yeah, Frida.
Yeah, one time we had, I remember Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Ruth might remember, they had talked about trying to do some type of regional combined quarterly civic league association. So that there could be power in numbers, that we could have more of a be more vocal and things going on in the area that just cover the entire church here. Something similar to, I think Carver Association may have a larger civic league. And I agree with I can't see your name, Lord, but you know what I'm saying. But Chris, yeah, because we do need to be more vocal. At one time we were more active, but that commitment, we had people who were more committed and dedicated and had free time. We did the cleanups, we did this, we did that. And so I think one of the things, if you can get people on board to commit to coalition, that's I think was the term they use, civic league coalition for Churchill, and send at least one or two representatives, have an alternate, and we can identify those things on the dockets as far as zoning appeals, the planning commission, that would affect us all. You know, if you go out to next door and you see some of the issues, it's pretty much everybody in Churchill has the same issue. So I would be interested in participating in something like that. I'm not the best organizer or planner, but I'll show up if you need somebody to sit at a table.
Yeah. And there actually is, I forgot to mention, but you saying coalition reminded me, there is another entity that is all Richmond wide, that is working to make those connections. And so I've engaged with them. The one tricky thing is it kind of goes back to where Chris started initially, is there could be a point where it's too big. And so that one, I think there's a lot of value to it, but it's too big. It can't be the only thing. Maybe I'll put it that way. So it's a good thing for me to be connected with, but having something that is more, all right, here's the East End, right? Because stuff that's happening on the West End might actually be very different than what's happening on the East End. And so yeah, so I'll talk to the presidents. I'll see what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Some of their groups may actually have, like, so, you know, to Chris's point, you know, I'll own, like, there's not a whole lot we've done in the past few years. And you know, to be fair, part of that's pandemic, part of it's up until 9 months ago, I was the only official officer, right? You know, there's all kinds, but that's why I say, you know, coming into 2023, I want to see New Visions really come back to life. And so this could be pieces of what that looks like. People coming to the meetings, us actually connecting with other entities, us learning how to bridge some of those gaps. Because at the end of the day, our tagline is neighbors helping neighbors. And that first neighbors is plural. So that means a lot of us coming together to help a lot of us. So any other comments? We're getting into the last 9 minutes, just to honor y'all's time. And I'm gonna have a little kid pop in here at 10 sharp, if not earlier, that will signal I'm done, because I'll be watching him. But any other final thoughts before we go?
I'd just say that if there's anybody that's outside the footprint that is looking for a group to join, then they should come join us and tell them that they're welcome, and they'll get some benefits, even though it's not the official footprint. I mean, some of the things that we've done is written official letters on behalf of, as the Civic Association New Visions, and we've done that for things that happen outside the footprint. Yeah. So if people are coming to us and they have concerns on their block and they request it, New Visions, we could put it to a vote and write a letter on their behalf, even though it's not happening in our footprint. So I think nobody should focus too much on the footprint, and just know that if they come and they need help, that's what we do. So,
Yeah.
and we're always willing to support that in the Richmond or in the Churchill community.
Yeah, that's good. And especially because we're definitely not the type that we're like, a private club where we're blocking off. But even more, even in your example, a lot of times there can be a relevant justification. So if somebody is dealing with some situation with a landlord at a specific property on 34th Street, well, there's a good chance that landlord also has properties in our footprint, and the way that they're operating there could be relevant to here. So even in that, there could be some really easy cross points to make that justification even more. But even if there weren't those, you're right. Like, that's just who we are. We want to help our community. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to say, I think I know I'm one of these, but there's people who moved into this area during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is that I think I would just prefer to get to know my neighbors better and have a sense of community and see what we can do instead of just sort of showing up, gentrifying the area.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely a sense of that. And so having a place to plug into and make ourselves useful and get to know people better and figure out how we can sort of solve some neighborhood community issues together is a really useful space. So yeah, let me know where I should send my dues. I'm happy to be here and be more of a part of
Thank
the
you.
Appreciate that. And that's good. Like that, I love hearing that kind of thing because I mean, it's not wrong to move into a new place, right? But the invitation is, how can we honor that place? How can we engage that place? So, I've been here for 15 years, but I didn't grow up here. So like, I have to operate in the same way of how can I be mindful of the community? And one of the gifts that New Visions has is members that have been here for all their life, have been here for, 60 plus years, have invested at that level. And so something that's important to me is, one, continuing to make space for those voices and continue to hear those voices. And then two, off of what you just shared, like I do want us to be mindful of things that it could be easy for people to ignore. This is why we've been doing this affordable housing series on and off for the past year and a half, because that's a huge issue. Before we started recording, Frida was talking about, now you can move into church, our geographic footprint for $700,000. There's a house going for that. And then I know neighbors who they're struggling to find it. And I won't open that can of worms because I hear my son now. And also we've talked about this a lot, and we'll continue to talk, especially when Project Homes comes. But there are issues that could be easy to ignore that I do not want us to ignore. Go ahead, Frida. I see you.
I just want to make this quick announcement before we get off the call. You are the first to know I'm going to start working part-time with Urban Hope of RVA. I'll be a housing counselor. I expect to have more community involvement. I did the real estate thing. I'm still keeping my real estate license, but I'm looking forward to being able to bring information in and being part of the community and go where my heart and passion is with affordable housing.
Yeah.
So I start on February 14th. And so that's the official announcement. Thank you.
Great.
Congrats and thank you.
You're welcome. I hope to be able to make a difference.
Yeah. Or I love Urban Hope.
Yeah, I do too.
Doing great stuff. And I will note, so, affordable housing is something that we'll continue to talk about. Just be mindful, it's very cold today. We have a lot of unsheltered neighbors or neighbors with insufficient shelter. And those shelters are diminishing. And when I say shelters, sometimes it's abandoned garages, abandoned properties, which is not ideal, even for those that are living in that space. But what's hard is there's not a whole lot of options. Richmond's not doing a great job at creating space for those that don't have a home. And as we've already talked about, that's where the affordable housing piece comes in, because even if somebody did want to try to get their own place, you got to have over $2,000 to live next to me right now. That's how much rent is right around on my block, which is just wild to me. And so just be mindful of that, particularly as you're driving around. If you see somebody that's, cold or hungry, we can be mindful, because we are neighbors helping neighbors, and that last neighbors there's no qualifier to who counts as a neighbor. if you're in our neighborhood, you're a neighbor. And so we want to be mindful of how we can see and hear and care for and love you. So all right, last word. Anyone got a last word before I close it out? Awesome. This was great. I appreciate everybody was here. Appreciate everybody who's watching later. Sheena will be connecting with the market. Sheena and Sunny and I will be connecting around what what week of the month will work best. We'll communicate that information as soon as we know it. Feel free, if you or anyone listening has feedback or questions or comments, reach out. And yeah, we'll aim for sometime in March. We'll get together, and the current plan is Project Homes will hopefully be joining us for that, which will be a really great conversation. So
Awesome.
Well, y'all have a great weekend. Keep warm, and I'll talk to you in March.
Y'all take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.